Can you hear me through Ed's microphone?
Hi, everybody.
Ed, you're the host today.
I'm filling in. I'm Ed Stetzer. It appears Brian Perez's microphone is not working. We're here on Pastor's Perspective. And again, I'm here with Brian Broderson, the pastor, not the pastor, I don't even know what you are anymore. What are you now?
I'm Pastor Emeritus.
You're a pastor of sorts.
Pastor Emeritus. You know what emeritus is.
I do. And I can hear Brian Perez through the, I can hear him coughing.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you through the microphone.
Can you hear me because I'm right next to you?
No, I can hear you through the headphones.
All right.
So can you not hear
I
yourself?
have my headphones all the way up, and I don't, which I better turn them down because all of a sudden, boom.
I have no idea what's going on. I am like a guest being I got Brian Perez freaking out next to me. I really don't know what to do here. You can call us if you want to talk about how pastors need to relax and be a non-anxious presence. Our phone number is 888-564.
I'm not a pastor, so I'm allowed to be anxious.
You're not a pastor?
No.
This is called Pastor's Perspective. How are you not a pastor?
I don't. Oh, hello. Oh, there I am.
There you go. I think you were.
Can you make me an honorary pastor?
I can.
Through Biola?
Not really.
A
Not
doctorate?
really. Biola doesn't make people pastors, just so we're clear.
How about doctor? Dr. Brian Perez.
Yeah, you could do that. Again, our phone number to talk to this scattered crew functioning with such high professionalism as we are live on the radio, 888-564-6173.
You know, yesterday we got a little desperate, and I said, because Brian was just fumbling the phone number right and left.
That's right. It's that anxiety.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I said, well, don't worry, Ed will be here tomorrow.
It'll be here tomorrow.
We'll get it sorted. Yeah.
And I'm here. You got your Bible open, and the print is so large that I can see it across the room. Wow,
it's like a billboard.
It is sort of like a billboard. You don't even have to read the.
I mean, look at the size of this
I know.
Bible.
You know, it's radio.
I bet if you held it up to the camera,
hold it up
to the camera, people watching can probably read.
This is a beast. Like, what is that? What translation is that?
NKJV.
NKJV. I mean, it's like. It's like you could hold, when you're preaching on Sunday, you could hold the Bible up and say, just read along with me. The Bible is so big.
You don't have to put it up on the screen. You can just hold it up.
You know, when I was a young Christian, and I've always had bad eyesight. So, but back in those days, I didn't wear my glasses. I just, I was too vain for glasses. So I had to keep getting larger print Bibles. But my mother-in-law, she gave me this cool Bible that was large print, KJV, and it was from the ministry of Jerry Falwell. And I wore that thing out, man, because it just had such great print size.
Oh, do you? And here you are. You want to hear a funny Jerry Falwell story?
Sure.
So I was... I have a degree from Liberty. I don't know if you knew that.
Yes.
So, yeah. And Jerry Falwell was a friend. And one day I was down there, and he would always go to this Ruby Tuesdays. And so we went out to lunch at this Ruby Tuesdays. And someone came, and he was a controversial figure back then.
Yeah.
And so he had security. But somebody walked up to us when we were having lunch, and the security guard looked at him. It all looked fine, and he had a newspaper in his hand. And he threw down this newspaper, and he said, Dr. Falwell, look at this, and it was a newspaper story that said Wheaton College changes its policy to allow dancing on campus.
Well,
and I had never heard of Wheaton College, I think, before that time, and his words were, that will never happen at Liberty University. And I think they probably have dances on campus now at Liberty University. I don't know. Maybe
they have full-on raves.
And it was so funny. So I later became a professor at Wheaton College.
Yes.
And I would tell him that story. Anyway, and I think I told Jonathan that story. Maybe it wasn't him. I just texted Jonathan, his son, who's just a great guy. Jonathan Falwell, super guy. But that's my Jerry Falwell was an often misunderstood and unappreciated. Home for unwed mothers. Home for alcoholics.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy did so much ministry that people, they just know a caricature of him. So anyway, we're all complicated.
Yeah. I mean, the moral majority, I remember I was in ministry at the time and, kind of listening to the stuff that he was saying at the time. And at the time, a lot of it seemed to make sense. But with the passing of time, I wanted to actually do a little dancing, so I sort of got a different Bible, and I didn't feel guilty anymore.
Yeah.
Did you dance at Wheaton, Ed?
I've tried to take my wife dancing, but she is not. She's opposed to dancing, so she's opposed to dancing. So she just. I would say she's more like she's opposed to dancing, related to me, because she thinks I'm embarrassing myself when I dance. So
Yeah.
2 left feet.
That's, I can,
Is that what it is?
I understand.
I don't know. Like, is that how they call it? I don't even know. So yeah.
Someone who doesn't dance or can't dance, they say they have 2 left feet. Okay, so my mic's working and the phones are working. 888-564-6173 is the number to call. We've got Pastor Brian Brodersen and Dr. Ed Stetzer from the Talbot School of Theology at Biola University. We are here to answer the questions you have about the Bible, the Christian faith, just about anything that's on your mind. Again, the number 888-564-6173. We're also live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. And if you're watching right now on Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram, you see that QR code there? Yeah, that one right there. If you scan that, it'll take you right to the Pastor's Perspective page at kwave.com, where you can fill out a form to get your question to us. Now, it doesn't get your question to us instantly in the studio, but we will have it ready for like tomorrow or something.
We get it, and then you print it out.
Yes.
It's in your hands.
Yes.
And then you scan it and send it to me. I always think
it's a whole
funny.
process.
I think it's funny that you've printed out an electronic document, wrote on it, scanned it, and emailed it to Brian Brodersen and I. That's and me. That's awesome. But
I'm old
school here.
And look, I have a daily planner too now.
Yeah.
So.
And I feel horrible because I never open those emails.
No, you don't need to.
You don't read them beforehand?
No.
I do.
No.
I do.
Everything's off. Yeah.
I have now. I'm just saying, you're just off the cuff. This is why, because you're just so awesome. It's like, what's your IQ? Like 195?
Well, come on. You were the dean of my grad school. You tell me.
Well, I've seen your grades, so I might be lower than that. I don't really know.
I got straight A's then.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. You're a brilliant guy.
So Lucy sent us a question, and it's a current events question. She writes, on Sunday, Don Lemon and protesters went into a church. They disrupted the service. My question is, as a congregation, how do we react and protect ourselves from this? Brian?
How do we react and protect ourselves from something
like if somebody,
at our church? Yeah. Well, I think, most churches have security teams, and most churches have plans in case people might want to disrupt. We've had services disrupted many times over, the many years that I was pastoring. And you just kind of deal with it sort of on the spot. Like I said, you have your security team, you have your pastoral staff, you have people that are ready in such an event occurs.
Yeah, but there were like dozens of them.
Yeah. And I think that particular thing that's where the authorities need to deal with that. I mean, obviously that's against the law, and so that hopefully these people will get that message that you can't do that. But I've been in situations where the service is disrupted, and is generally fallen on me to kind of navigate it at the moment. You just kind of. I think the Lord, I know the Lord helped me, because what do you do? All of a sudden you got somebody standing up at church screaming at you, and you're like, okay, we got to, keep everybody calm. And so how do we do this? And a few times I would just say, hey, let's pray. You guys pray. And then I would just give some direction, or sometimes I would even engage with the person, like, well, okay, what's the problem? And okay, well, look, we're going to talk about that afterwards, but right now it's not the place. So we had people carried out and things like that over the years.
Oh.
So, yeah.
I want to hear your best one. Like, what's the craziest of the crazy that you have as an example?
I'll tell you off the air.
Okay.
Oh, man.
All right, maybe the second crazy. For me, the most recent one I had was somebody who said they had a prophetic word that was basically condemning everything that this church had done and believed in, et cetera, et cetera. And And it was just one person. So in that case, I just said, okay, folks, we're going to go ahead and let's sing while our security team takes care of this person. And they just kind of person was having a mental health crisis episode. And then I've never had like a group of protesters. And I got to tell you, Jonathan Parnell's the pastor there. I know him, and he's a Southern Baptist. This is not this. You know, there are churches that are sort of like, I don't know, like constantly political or everything else. That's not them. Like these are not that. They have a one of their pastors serves with ICE, and that's why they were protesting. And he can let me just tell you, he handled that so well.
Yeah.
And Don Lemon, Don Lemon getting in there saying, well, you know, these people have a right to protest. Like, yeah, not in the church. Like it was so.
Yeah.
I posted that video because it was so bizarre. Yeah. Don Lemon, whatever. Yeah. But let me just say, if you watch the video, I mean, there's a lot of things going on there, and you know, those kids were clearly terrified. But that pastor, Jonathan's a lead pastor.
The little clip that I saw of him kind of responding, I thought, wow, that was good what he said.
Yeah, no, I mean, to have the presence of mind to do that so quickly. Yeah. And again, like I get, like if you wanted to protest this church for having a bivocational pastor who was functioning as a law officer, I think is even valid to do that. But you don't go in and you know, there's a legal, valid place to protest. They could have been out on the sidewalk protesting and saying this, but instead they went in. I mean, you've seen those pictures, just scared those kids, and it was, you know. But here's the thing: I think that it really, the backlash to this really. This was a miscalculation on their part in a very, very large way. And again, I would tell you the statement from the mayor and the governor were not great. They were kind of weak. Right. But I think a lot of people are just like, this is not what happens in churches. And again, you got to know some people who said, no, we should do that. They compared to Martin Luther King, and we're at the week of Martin Luther King's his birthday celebration. We do this holiday. He did what are called kneel-ins. They didn't do this. So again, there is. I mean, that they would go into churches that are segregated churches and non-violently pray in places they weren't supposed to be.
Yeah. Well, these guys weren't praying.
Not at all. And so they were
praying with an E.
And my point is, like, even if you think that that's an appropriate thing, this just widespread is just because I had people say to me, because I tweeted about it and said this is really inappropriate, and people were like, well, you know, they got a right to protest. Even we've seen, you know, it's Martin Luther King weekend. People have protested peacefully in church. Yes, they did. They prayed in segregated churches, and they were removed from those segregated churches. Screaming at children is not on the list.
No.
So what does the Constitution protect? Because we've heard that argument over the last few days that, this is the right to protest and everything else, and we're allowed to do this. Yeah. So where do you draw the line?
Well, I think the issue is one of the issues is private property. You know, you can't, like many people pointed out, like with Don Lemon, you know, if somebody decided we're going to come over to your house and we're not just going to stand out in front of your house on the sidewalk and say what we don't like about you, we are actually going to come into your house. We're going to take over your house and tell you all the things we hate about you. Well, that's against the law. You can't do that. So a church is not public property.
It's open to the public, but it doesn't mean that it's... It's open to the public,
but under certain conditions.
Yeah, the mall's open to the public too.
Right.
But you could trespass people. It's called ask them to leave. And as soon as they asked them to leave, they were in violation of the law. So, but they could have protested outside for sure. And I would defend their right to protest outside. Yeah. But protesting is, I mean, again, there's a long history of that. You know, social change that we all agree with has happened because people protested. You know, civil rights movement wouldn't be here if it wasn't for protests.
Yeah. Yeah, but these protests, many of them are, you know, here's what blows my mind. It really blows my mind that people actually think, you know, that somehow this myth has developed that ICE agents aren't really real law enforcement people, and that you don't have to do what law enforcement tells you. It's like, really? When did that happen? I think there's, you know, when law enforcement tell you to do something, you're actually supposed to do what they tell you to do. And now there's this
when
whole
they give
thing.
you lawful orders.
When
yes.
they give you lawful
Yes,
orders,
yes,
right? Yeah.
yes.
So, but now there's this idea that somehow these aren't even real.
Right. But that's true. Like the Postal Service has a police force. It's a real police force.
Yeah.
You know, it's a matter of fact, some people consider it the most effective of the federal police forces as well. Seriously, you should Google it. Like people just super admire the post office. But, so there are different enforcement. So they don't do traffic.
Yeah.
And so that's the most common way people interact with police is with traffic. But they do a lot of other things as well.
Well, you think it like the FBI. If the FBI came up to you and they're going to question you or something, or they're going to give you some instruction, you're not going to go, you're not my local police department. I don't have to listen to you.
Right. And then later on, if you have an objection, later on you voice that objection, but for sure. And you'd have the freedom to do so.
Yep.
Who was that? Lucy, thank you so much for sending in your question through the Pastor's Perspective page at kwave.com. And now we're going to go to the phones, beginning with Stephanie, who is calling us from Apple Valley. There is only one apple in Apple Valley. Did you know that, Ed Stetzer?
I went all the way to Joshua Tree, and David Kinnaman thinks it's the funniest thing because I remember the U2 album Joshua Tree. I thought there was a Joshua Tree. So I'm like driving around. So where's and there's a little sign that says Joshua Tree. I'm like, cool. There's going to be just like on the U2 album.
Yeah. It's just down the road from the Apple in that valley.
Don't judge me. Normal
you're the
people.
one who said.
Hey, if you call, tell me if you agree. 888-564-6173. But Stephanie, you're live on the air. Go ahead with your question or your comment.
Hey, I just want to tell me, am I totally tripping on something? My son wants to go to college and he wants to be a pastor and he wants to go to this school that has a whole thing on doctrine of election. And it rubs me wrong because I think it's not in our purview as to who's the elect, because that's a whole God thing in my mind. But I'm looking for correction because I just don't want to. Can I just get your thoughts?
So are you saying the school only teaches, like this is the only thing that they talk about is the doctrine of election?
In the applications, where do you stand? Some of the people, he's meeting with a pastor. I'm not sure what they talk about, but I'm thinking this is not the hill to die on But if this is the hill he's going to die on as a future pastor, I don't want my money going to it.
Oh, come on now. Should we ask what the school is, or would that be crossing another? Do we not do that here, Brian?
Well, no, I was curious.
Should we ask? Are you comfortable telling us, Stephanie, or would you rather not?
Well, I don't. Well, it's Masters.
Okay.
And it's a good school.
Yeah.
But I don't want him going to seminary there. You know? And I'm thinking, and I'm concerned about it because maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know who's elect, and I don't think God tells me. And I think we'll be surprised at who's in and who's not. And
I agree with those. I agree with those parts.
Well, I think, Ed, you are the man to answer this question, because I remember I was told by several people that you were actually a Calvinist.
I remember, including Chuck Smith, who said that as well.
Well, that was information that somebody had whispered in his.
That is true. That is true. Okay, so let's talk about it. First, Stephanie, I am the dean of the largest seminary in California. I'm the dean of the Talbot School of Theology. So I say that because I'm the place that many people say, man, should I go to Talbot or should I go to Masters? And there are others as well. And I want to say to you that I think Masters is doing a good job in theological education. Now, they are Reformed. So we're not Reformed at Talbot as an institutional position. I'm on the more Reform side of things. We also have people like Fred Sanders, one of our better known faculty. He's more on the Arminian side of things. So like I think what you're saying, we put that in the category of places that Christians might disagree. And so and there are others as well, like baptism, modes of baptism. We at the Talbot School of Theology, we have people who baptize their babies, and people like me who only baptize believers. So Masters is a Reformed identifying school. So I am not surprised that, and they're also they have other theological positions as well. I am not surprised that your son is seeing. Do you agree with our school's position on election? Now, I have not I've not seen the application forms. But I would say to you that the word elect and election, that's a Bible word. The question is, how do you apply that? And in the more Reformed tradition, it does indeed believe that the elect were chosen before the foundation of the world, that grace is irresistible, that God redeems those that he has chosen, and he's chosen based on his own decision by no one's merit or foreknowledge or anything else. That's typical Reformed theology. But I would say, let's broaden it from Masters, down the road at Westminster, they would have those same views. And I'm deeply thankful for I was just having a meal with the president of Westminster 2 weeks ago. So it is a well-respected and regarded theological position, the Reform view. It's not the view of the Calvary Chapel Costa Mesa.
Nope.
And so that's where I would say if your son is Reformed, because they'll ask. I mean, at our case, like you don't have to be Reformed to go to. You have to be an evangelical and hold to the inerrancy of Scripture. So we're a conservative evangelical school. They would have more specific doctrinal standards, like around election that you mentioned. So I get it. Like at this point, you have to just say, how comfortable am I if I'm like opposed to that doctrinal standard? What does that mean for me? So Brian Burson, what would you add as someone? I mean, the Calvary Chapel is sort of known in part as being, I would say not Reformed, but in some kinds anti-Reformed.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I would tend to be a little bit different in the sense that, I would kind of find more of a middle ground, maybe, like you, perhaps, in some ways. I think, the problem is not so much the theology, although if you take it to an extreme, I think it does become a bit of a problem because I just don't think that Scripture teaches that. But people can take it to the extreme view, but still be mature enough to navigate it. And this is the problem with younger people. Not exclusively, but oftentimes with a younger person, they get enamored by this doctrine, and it sort of becomes obsessive, and it's kind of like they can't think beyond the sovereignty of God. They can't think beyond any of those Calvinistic ideas, and they become argumentative, and they want everybody to see that this is really the true gospel, and how can you not believe this? And, I've had people that I led to Jesus that later told me, like, I didn't really know the gospel because they discovered it through their reading of Calvinistic literature or whatever. So I think it depends on the maturity level of the person. And I think, Ed, you know this, young people, Bible college students, seminary students, youth and pride kind of go hand in hand. Sure. Knowledge and pride kind of go hand in hand. Yeah. So, sometimes it's just a matter of growing up a little bit. Yep. And you might be very passionate about something at one point, and then later you're like, I don't know why I was so intense about that. Yeah,
we actually have a phrase for that because I'm on the more Reformed side of things, and we refer to it sometimes. I go through what we call a cage stage Calvinist. You just gotta kind of don't let them around other people because they're always, and what I would say is, so at Talbot we have lots of students who are Reformed and lots of students who are evangelical free or charismatic.
And you have some professors that lean toward the Reformed.
We had some professors use the term Reformed. I define myself as a Reformed Baptist. Yeah. But what I would say is, like I do. We just had our welcome banquet for our new students at the Talbot School of Theology, and we're having a great time. We have a very happy culture. You know that. You've seen people know. It's not like a lot of schools where everyone's mad and arguing with each other. But I got up and I said, "Here's the thing. I got a 5-point welcome to you. One of them is do not become a jerk while you're in seminary." Because I've seen too many people become a jerk when they're in seminary. And a lot of them were around, not all of them, but a lot of them were around Reformed theology and saying everyone else is wrong. And so, Stephanie, you want your son to go to seminary, get a solid theological education, and to come out of seminary being able to relate to other people, having a Christ-like spirit and attitude. And I think it's fine to articulate those two things to him. And if Reformed theology is a deal breaker, that would be, I guess, between you and your son as well.
But I think one last thing I would say is I know you can go to Master's Seminary and not become brainwashed over this issue, and this becomes like the fundamental issue for your life. I know.
You're going to get letters even talking about you being brainwashed. Yeah, I think people come out of, I don't know, Francis Chan's a master's graduate. I don't know if he's reformed.
I mean, no, I don't think he is.
No.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. You can go, and you're not.
We just don't like in
gonna,
higher education. We don't like using the word brainwashed.
Why?
We'd like to say that you've become educated in your views. Anyway,
But sometimes that education is more like brainwashing, right?
I don't know. I'm not at the Talbot School of Theology, so
No, I'm not accusing you.
yeah, okay, fair enough. Just want to make sure.
Thanks for calling us, Stephanie.
Stephanie, wait.
Thank you for your time.
Oh, wait.
What do you think? I mean, is this helpful?
You want an
or
evaluation
We're
of the
just,
answers.
we're just talking to each
Stephanie.
other here.
We're going to get off track there. What do you think, Stephanie?
What I think you hit it spot on. Youth
Right.
is pride.
Yeah.
Don't make it the big deal.
Yeah.
It's not the big deal on any level. I don't need it to be a deal breaker if I'm not going to fund your education. That's just dumb.
Yeah.
That's what I got from our conversation.
Yeah. And I think the family dynamic there is just what's different for us. Because at Talbot, we got, like I said, I'm more on the Reform side. I'm Baptist. I got Presbyterians who are like all in Reformed. And I got dispensationalists who are in a different category. We think of Talbot, we're a conservative evangelical school, but broadly evangelical, and that we have Arminians and Calvinists and, Paedo Baptists and Credo Baptists. And I love that because it's like, you're all evangelical. We all hold to the inerrancy of Scripture. We sort of learn together. And then when we go into the real world ministry, it's not like, those Lutherans up the road, man, that church loves Jesus too. And so we can work together with them.
Yeah. Yeah, and you and I know we have a ton of friends that are Reformed.
Yeah.
And we love them.
Matt Chandler, he's always trying to convince you to become a Calvinist.
Yeah. Well, he actually isn't, but
but we had some conversations around some fire pits when you were a student there. Yeah. For those who don't know, Brian did his master's degree with me at a prior institution, and we had a cohort that Calvinists and non-Calvinists had some good discussions.
And we had some great times.
We did.
So you used the term conservative to describe Biola.
Yeah.
So nowadays we hear that term and we just think politically conservative.
Right.
Is that what you mean?
No. I mean, there's some connection between the two because if you're going to talk about conservative politically, I mean, we're convictionally pro-life, we're convictionally traditional marriage, and those are certain things that would include that as well. But also, for example, being a conservative politically would probably include, for example, lower taxes. We don't at Talbot or Biola, we don't have a position on what the marginal tax rate should be, other than in California, it's way too high. But that's sorry, I slipped that in there for just a second.
Well, I'm sure I know Newsom listens in.
Yeah, he's Newsom. Hey, Newsom, you've got to back off on Latin a whole lot. I got bigger issues to deal with Newsom than even just on taxes, as bad as they are. But so for us, what that means is we hold to an inerrantist view of the Bible, and as such, that shapes everything that we do. So we hold to what theologians would say on the spectrum of theology. There's liberal theology, so that would be mainline Protestants. They would use that word to describe themselves. And we would be not just evangelical, though that in and of itself is almost conservative compared to the rest, but we're also conservative evangelical. And, that kind of manifests itself in our view of the Bible and biblical studies and more. So, and we love the Word of God. But this turned into a commercial for Talbot. You just sort of threw up that softball there, but I do appreciate it. And I'm not saying for Stephanie, but for any of you who would like to come to the Talbot School of Theology, we'd love to have you, and the Lord's doing great things. And like I said, we're the largest, by FTE, we're the largest seminary in California now and continue to grow, and the Lord's doing good things. You don't have to be a pastor either. People are studying apologetics there. We got Sean McDowell on our team there. Marriage and family therapy. Thanks for letting me have a commercial there, brother. I feel like
we'll send you the bill later.
Maybe Stephanie was like a setup towards that.
I don't know. Did you set her up to call?
No, but I did not invite. I did not say, "Hey, consider this." But I said a good thing about our partners.
The bill is in the mail.
The bill is in the mail.
Yeah, so
there you go. There you go. We do want to become a sponsor again.
Yes.
I miss being a sponsor.
Yeah, we love that sponsorship.
Okay, we're going to come back.
Yay! So we've got Pastor Brian Broderson from Calvary Chapel Costa Mesa. He's the pastor emeritus there, and he also teaches on Sunday nights at 6:30, the Back to Basics live Bible study. That is
from that huge, large print Bible study.
Actually, there's a friend of mine who was telling me Sunday night that his print is too small on his Bible, and right away I thought of this Bible. But then he said he wanted some study notes. So this one doesn't have any study notes, but who knows? Maybe I'll gift it to him. I don't know where I got this. Somebody gave it to me.
I think someone gave it to you who, anyway, couldn't see. So, and helping you to see. May you see clearly, my brother. 888-564-6173. That's 888-564-6173. Here on Pastor's Perspective, I'm Ed Stetzer, hijacking this segment before we go to break.
You do such a good job with that. All right, so we've got more calls coming up. So call in, 888-564-6173. We're back on Pastor's Perspective. 888-564-6173 is the number to call. I'm Brian Perez, here with Pastor Brian Broderson from echoesofmercy.com and Dr. Ed Stetzer, the Dean of the Talbot School of Theology at Biola University, the most comprehensively Christian university in North America. Are we still going to say that, or are we going to change that?
Oh, it sounds weird when you say it because you have to give the context. There was a study done by a professor at another university called Baylor University down in Texas, and they kind of examined our policies and found Biola had, as a set of policies, the most comprehensively Christian-focused policies in North America. And so we love it. We love the good news going forth about Biola University.
And Baylor was a good evangelical school, but it's kind of taken a little bit of a drift, right, Baylor?
Well, I don't know that Baylor ever identified itself as evangelical. Okay. So it was...
right, yeah, I agree.
Yeah. It's Texas Baptist, and I think they use that term to describe themselves. Mm-hmm. And so it's like if you go there, like you could have non-Christian professors, but there's also, for example, they take a stance on marriage. But you might also have non-Christian professors who agree to work in that context. It's we don't have any non-Christian professors. We don't have any non-Christian students. Well, I mean, everyone has testimony. They come in, but sometimes they meet Jesus while they're there, and that's like different. Like Cal Baptist, who we like. Cal Baptist accepts non-Christian students, but they don't have non-Christian professors. Mm-hmm. So it really depends on what the school does.
Okay, yeah.
So yes, but they don't use the word evangelical at Baylor. So it's.
Yeah. I have a friend who's teaching there right now.
Yeah.
And
it's a good school with some really wonderful Christian professors who are there. and it's for them. It's often an evangelistic opportunity for them as well. But again, they hire non-Christian professors, which is not in like the School of Theology. Their Truett is all that's all evangelical Christian.
Okay.
But they're math professors, and it's just a different philosophy. It's not a we want our professors because they're mentoring students at so many ages and stages in their life. We want them all to be Christians, and that's part of our policy.
Mm-hmm.
So for Baylor to call Biola the most comprehensively Christian university in North America, where do they rank themselves based on what you just...
It's about halfway down the chart. So, and it is sort of funny because I'm like, I was kind of thinking, what was it like to be at Baylor and write this book and kind of put yourself down maybe the bottom third? But here's what's interesting, and it's not even like it's not even like it's by policy. So there are schools that are probably more conservative on some issues than others, but if their policies didn't all align around Christian faith, that's where sort of the ranking came in. But Baylor, since it doesn't say that's comprehensively Christian, right? So, and again, let me be clear. I recommend people sometimes go to Baylor. Depends on the program, but I recommend people sometimes go to Baylor. Just like there are good schools that are non-Christian schools you go to, but you sort of have to know that a Christian school. When someone says it's a Christian university, it doesn't always mean the same thing. So in SoCal, we mentioned Cal Baptist and we mentioned Biola, but like Point Loma would be another example, and so. They admit non-Christian students, so it's a different, Westmont, I'm trying to remember, I think Westmont is a covenant school, so they only admit Christian students. And then there'll be different theological views the schools have. Hope International is here, and they admit non-Christian students. So if you're, and I would say, I didn't mean to turn this into a conversation about universities, but as you think about the kind of university you want to pick, I sent one kid to Cal Baptist. Right. So and I got one kid at Biola. So they had different needs, and so you want to kind of look through those things. For what we like is the robust discipleship culture that a fully Christian environment creates, and so we get to lean in fully on that, to think Christianly, to think biblically about everything, and that's what we do at Biola. Yeah. So.
Very nice. All right. 888-564-6173. This is Pastor's Perspective. We're like a podcast. We have a podcast, but you can actually call in and talk to us, which kind of sets us apart. Here is Scott in Vista, who listens to us on the K-Wave app. What is your question for us today, Scott?
Hey, thanks for taking my call, guys. And as always, I'll preface by saying you guys are fantastic. It's just a blessing to listen to you on the way home from work, and that's what I'm doing now. Just stopped to make a comment about yesterday. I caught on the tail end of your conversation about Martin Luther King Day. And, there are people that are giving some negative comments about the man. And, regardless of what he did, and he probably may have done some bad stuff. But you know what? Isn't it true? And I'm just asking this question to you. Isn't it true that God's going to forgive him? And a guy like in his situation or his title, he was a Reverend Martin Luther King, he probably repented his sins, whatever they were. And something, we've got to think about that and just feel that is actually what probably went down and happened. And we need to move forward and look at the great things that this guy did, as you guys said yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously that, we don't know the inner workings of his heart and mind, around the time of his assassination or leading up to that. We know from some of his statements and so forth that he did hold to liberal ideas theologically, but people can change. And so we, but like our point yesterday was, I'm not honoring him as a theologian. I'm honoring him for what he did in standing up against just a horrific evil of racism, and doing it in a way, peacefully, to the best of his ability, and encouraging people to do that. So anyway, but thanks, Scott, for commenting.
Yeah, no, I just appreciate the time, and I just wanted to reiterate that to the listeners out there that, hey, this guy, sure, he made mistakes, but you know what? Whatever they were, I'm sure he went to God, and God forgive him for that. And I know that they say that, certain types of sins, don't get forgiven, I guess murder and things like that. But I don't know. It depends on the situation, right? And God's going to make that determination.
Let's back that one up just for a second.
Yes, yes, please.
Thankfully, all sins.
All sins can be forgiven. Yeah. So we just so murder too. There are murderers in heaven who I know you didn't mean that, but yeah. So just
maybe he did mean it. Scott, can we get clarification here?
I think he's probably thinking about well, Scott, tell us what you're thinking.
That is what you're thinking, Scott. You're back on the air.
Oh no, I just think people make mistakes, and even with the magnitude of the mistake, the guy upstairs is going to make that decision.
Yeah. Well, when somebody when somebody recognizes and acknowledges their sin, whether it be their sin in regard to denial of God's truth or sin in regard to moral failure or whatever, of course God forgives all of that. So we trust in that.
Thanks for letting me.
All right.
Thanks, Scott.
Vent.
Yeah.
Take care, guys.
Yeah. Ed, that yesterday. So at the end of the program, we were just talking about. I just brought up the fact that I had seen more negative stuff on Martin Luther King, and I know it's always a controversial figure, but for some reason this year on social media, I just saw a ton of. He wasn't a Christian. He, just a lot of negative stuff.
Well, I think we're in a season right now where people are finding it. They're more and more free to say things they wouldn't have said a few years ago, and some of that's not good.
Yeah.
Some of that's not good. I'm deeply thankful for the work that Martin Luther King did to advocate for civil rights, and I'm glad to say that. And I think Christians everywhere should be deeply thankful for the civil rights work that he did.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, 888-564-6173. Anthony and Lake Elsinore calling in, listening on FM 107.9. Hello, how can we help you?
Hey, guys, how's it going?
All right.
Thanks so much for taking my call. I have a multifaceted question that kind of intersects politics and theology, and that is how Zionism and dispensationalism intersect as it pertains to eschatology and even like current events, etc. I know that Zionism and dispensationalism probably need some definitions, so I think it'd be helpful if you could start me with those, and then how they intersect pertaining to current times and eschatology.
And you let Anthony just come on the line with 20 minutes left in a program.
Less than that, really.
Less than 20, and we're going to figure out how to answer this question in this amount of time.
But Anthony, we've talked before, right? You've called in the past,
but we only got through the Zionism definition.
Yeah, and there's a reason, Anthony, because it's 19 minutes left in the show. Like, I'm ready to go.
Okay, Ed. Dispensationalism.
But dispensationalism is a theological system, where Zionism is more of a nationalist or national system.
Right.
So dispensationalism is a theological system that kind of for reading the Bible, understanding redemptive history. Talbot was a bastion of dispensationalism. Now we'd have people with those views and some other different views as well. It's done a distinct plan for Israel and the church. So that's where the Israel stuff comes in. Distinct plan for Israel and the church. Typically a literal interpretation of prophecy. I mean, again, Calvary Chapel would be just bathed in dispensationalism.
Yeah, totally.
It is what it is. Future for Israel. Israel spirits some sort of future national turning to Christ. There's a millennial reign. In your world, pre-trib rapture as well as part of that, though not all dispensationalists believe that. And it's primarily theological, not political. But clearly it overlaps when you start talking about Zionism. So Zionism is primarily a political and national movement. Jews are Zionists. They're not dispensational. So not all Jews are Zionists, but there are Zionist Jews. Jewish self-determination, belief in the land. So here's where you can see some start coming together, right? So if there's still a future for ethnic Israel in the millennium related to the land, then the Jews possessing the land is an important thing then, but it could also be an important thing now. Now, not all dispensationalists actually think that. You can actually say, well, this is a future thing related to the land. But I was talking to, what is his name? He used to be the head of the ERLC, Richard Land. Richard Land's a well-known Zionist and a well-known dispensationalist.
Right.
And, and I said to him, so, I mean, like, for 2,000 years, people didn't really hold these. This dispensationalism is kind of new, et cetera, et cetera. I said, why are you so confident? He said, well, I wasn't confident until I mean, I was pretty confident, but then Israel was founded. And so Israel's return sort of bolsters my confidence in dispensationalism, he would explain. Yeah. So Zionism bolsters a confidence in dispensationalism because now Israel is back in the land and there's more to do with the land, but they are separate and distinct things. One's theological, one's national.
Yeah. And let's face it. I mean, you've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years where Israel doesn't exist in the land, as the people with their independence, government, and all of that sort of thing. So, I mean, in some ways, you can understand why people just thought, well, that season passed. God, they were the people, and now the church has come, and the church is the new Israel, and there's things in Scripture that people will grab onto and say, like, here we see the church replacing Israel, replacement theology, and so forth. But then. I think that's an interesting point Richard Land made.
It is. It's like, but then 1948 comes
around.
Who
knew? Who expected?
Can you imagine, talking smack about this in 1947, and then Israel's restored? So you can see why that bolsters. And I'm one who actually sees the restoration of Israel as a nation as a marker on a prophetic timeline. Not as much as your predecessor Chuck Smith did.
Yeah, but I think it's definitely. I think when you look at the prophetic scripture, so I've just almost finished reading Jeremiah, and man, I just thought, for those who have this idea that Israel doesn't have a future, I would just encourage them. Sometimes it's good just to put down your theology books because you get a lens then, and somebody's got an opinion and they're going to interpret things through that. But just go back to Scripture. And, I think I said this recently, but I just challenge anyone who doesn't believe Israel has a future to read Jeremiah 29 through 33 and then kind of, see what you think after that. Because, God tells Israel they're going to go into Babylon. They're going to go into captivity. And, of course, they go. But then he tells them that he's going to bring them back and he's going to bless them. Now, of course, they came back from Babylon 70 years later. But the promises God made to them about bringing them back and what he would do for them have never been fulfilled in their history. So either God didn't mean what he said.
Who are you trying to persuade? I agree with you, right?
I'm not talking to you.
Okay, you seem you're looking at me. You got big eyes.
You're sitting right across from me.
Okay. Well, this is like
I want to look at Brian
Perez because I agree with you. We always disagree on the pre-trip rapture.
I didn't think you did.
Okay, all right, good.
I didn't think you disagree with you. No, but I'm getting excited because I'm just thinking.
You are calm down. Anthony, I apologize. He's just going off on a tear. All right,
but I just think that those Jeremiah passages, I think, again, if you look at what God promises Israel for the future, that has never happened. So they come back from the Babylonian captivity. They have a brief season where, under, of course, Ezra and Nehemiah, Zerubbabel, all of that is there, but they're still under Persian reign, and then they transition from Persian reign to the Greek period, and they're under, the rule of the Greeks. And then, for a brief period, they kind of have an independence again under the Hasmoneans. And then in 63 A.D., Pompey comes, and the Romans come. And then in 70 A.D., of course, they're dispersed again. And so the promises, my point is the promises.
Yeah, I just want to point out that you just went through like a millennium of history. And poor Anthony's like, I was just asking about science.
Well, he said we didn't really answer the question last time.
Now you have. I think he will repent of that.
Okay. So anyway, I think that if you look at Jeremiah 29 through 33 and the promises for the future that God gives them, they have not been fulfilled because they're pointing to something that hasn't yet happened, which, of course, they have to be in the land for those things to transpire. So that's the end of this answer.
The music is starting to play.
Now you've got all the answers, right, Anthony?
Well, kind of.
Oh, please, Anthony, don't serve him up again. You had a specific question, go for it. Brian's got more to say, but you got to do it quickly. What is Brian not addressed in his overview of thousands of years of history?
Okay, the significance of the land in dispensationalism requires another temple.
Yes.
So how does that interact with what's going on today, in your opinion?
Well, of course, there are people in the land that do want to see a rebuilt temple. There's a Temple Institute, and these guys have been working for years to try to prep, get all of the instruments and things ready for when a temple is rebuilt. I do think that there's probably some connection with the Antichrist and the rebuilding of a temple. I do think that a temple will be rebuilt in the future, but as to exactly when that's going to happen, I don't know. People want to do it in the land. A lot of people in the land think the people that want to do it are crazy.
And certainly in Millennium, we see that. Yeah. So we know that's the case. I think between now and then, it's a little more murky. So I would say I don't know.
Yep.
All right, man. Thanks for calling us today here on Pastor's Perspective.
So a few years ago, though, I was in Israel, not on our trip, Ed, but on a different one, and we were sitting in the Temple Institute, and they were kind of explaining to us what their vision is and their goal and all of this kind of stuff, and they were talking about having all the details of the temple that they got from the Talmud and everything. And I said, well, the scriptures themselves give a pretty good picture of the instruments, the furniture, all of that. Why are you using the Talmud and all of that? And they went on to some big explanation about how that was more accurate. But then, it kind of came down to, I said, well, Zechariah says that the Messiah will build a temple. And this was the response. They said, look, we don't know what the Messiah is doing. We don't know if he's going to show up or not. We got to get this thing built. So if he comes, fine. If he doesn't, we don't need him. Those were the exact words.
No, really?
Yes.
Okay, that's fascinating.
It was amazing.
That's fascinating. A little different view on our side of things.
Yeah, I mean, it was like we don't really need the Messiah. He's not that big of a deal. We just got to get this temple built.
All right, they got stuff to do.
If he comes and wants to help out,
sure,
that'll be fine.
Tell him to grab a brick. Let's go.
But we're not waiting around for him.
All right, I really know how to respond to that. Okay,
man, oh man. Fernando,
you hang with some of the strangest people. Like, you have friends everywhere.
I wasn't hanging with these people.
You were literally sitting with them as hanging. All right.
Fernando, hello.
Yes, hi.
Calling us from Anaheim. How can we help you?
Yes. I have a question. It's a quick question about men. When you get a group of men praying, like few of us, and what do you think about praying and you wearing a hat, and you're praying with a hat, or with your baseball hat on? Is that dishonoring God or something like that?
Why do you ask that?
Oh, because, we were playing golf today. We always play golf on Wednesdays with a good group of men that I love from our church, Calvary Chapel. And we prayed before we tee off. And they were about to pray, and a few guys took out their baseball hats. And I had my own because it was very cold. And 2 or 3 of them told me to take off my hat to pray. And I said, well, it's cold. I don't want to take off my hat to pray. And I'll feel uncomfortable. They feel uncomfortable. So I don't know. I just want to know what your thoughts are on that subject.
I love that this was like a spat on a golf course. Like, people were ready to go at it over this issue. It's over this thing. So
what do you think? Should he have taken off his hat, Ed?
I probably would take off the hat, just to be perfectly honest. So the question is, based upon several passages of Scripture, particularly 1 Corinthians 11:4, which says, every man who prays or prophesies with something on his head dishonors his head. So that's what he said. It's not honor, it's dishonoring. So in traditional settings, like when I'm a missiologist, so I teach culture. So older people generally think that it's dishonoring to have a hat on in church. Mm-hmm. And so I'll actually be speaking at a conference. I got younger pastors and older pastors and say, let's talk about something that's of value that we feel that we might not articulate. I said, this guy over here's got a hat on. How many of you are bothered by the fact this guy got a hat on in church? And the older folks will kind of raise their hand. And I say, yeah, it's because what you were taught. And you kind of go from there. So, but I would say that a lot of that has to do with the intent of the head covering. Mm-hmm. And so, I would say that, Paul was addressing that in the Greco-Roman world, head coverings, they had meaning, right? They were covered heads would sort of signal status, authority, and Roman men would cover their heads during pagan sacrifices. So Corinth, the church there, was distinguishing himself. Women have head covering, men not having head covering. But I think most of that's going to be in a cultural space. I'm not going to ask somebody to leave church with a hat on, though I'd prefer that they didn't wear it.
Yeah, and let's just remember this was a golf course. This wasn't a church.
Oh, I even forgot about that. That's true. That's true. That's true. So, but I still, I would have probably said, sure, I'll take a hat off. It's a little weird that you want it, but why not?
Yeah, I think Fernando, it kind of comes down to just a personal conviction. I know people that do that. I mean, I know guys that will wear a hat forever, and then all of a sudden they're going to pray and they take the hat off. And
I do that. I never pray with the hat on.
Okay. I think that's cool. And then I know other guys who it doesn't even cross their mind.
Do you
to
pray
take
with
the
a hat on?
I don't wear a hat. Yeah, I do, because I walk with my wife and we pray and I have a hat on.
Well, you don't even brush your hair, so it doesn't even matter. So I can see if you're bald, you might want to keep the hat on. I don't know.
So I think it's a personal conviction thing, Fernando, and your friends have that conviction, and I think that's great.
Would you have taken your hat off to defer to them since that's their conviction?
Yeah, probably so. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't get offended by it. Matter of fact, it's probably, in my view, it's kind of weird that they got offended by you not taking the hat off.
Or insisting that you do.
Yeah, exactly. So insisting that you do, that's a little weird. I think that's in the area of conscience. I will tell you, like I go to Mariners Church, and I'm trying to remember, like I imagine I've seen the worship leader wearing a hat sometimes, like the guy playing the guitar or something. And it gives me the twitches, but I can live with it. So.
Yeah, I was at a church a while ago, and I was noticing, the guy, I was in the UK, and the guy was wearing a New York Yankees hat, the worship leader. Okay, this is he's wearing a hat.
So if you had a worship leader at Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa wearing a hat, would you ask him to take it off?
No, I think we've had that before. No.
Okay. See, for me, like I probably am wrong. Maybe Mariners has a no hat rule. Mm-hmm. I just remember being in a contemporary worship setting where there was a kid with a hat, and so I would say that it is primarily a cultural description here and a respect issue. And respect is all about what culture you're in. Mm-hmm. So if wearing a hat in a religious situation is disrespectful, then I would take off the hat.
Yeah, I agree.
What about in regards to women wearing head coverings and all that?
I growing up in Catholicism. I mean, that was like back in those days. My mom and my sisters all were.
Oh, the Irish, Irish church. I grew up in
the church. Yeah. Again, I think it's. I think the 1 Corinthians 11 passage that Ed was talking about. I do think that culturally, Paul was addressing a cultural issue. So it's not necessarily a cultural issue in Southern California, but in other parts of the world, it certainly might be.
I was just in Egypt.
Women, yes.
And
exactly.
We saw a lot of women wearing head coverings there. Yeah. In churches. I mean, you have the Muslims do that, but in churches, some of the Christians were there as well. It's a modesty issue and it's a cultural issue.
Yeah.
All right, Fernando, hope this answers your question.
Thank you so much, and have a blessed day.
Hey,
all right.
Godspeed on the golf course.
How'd you do, by the way?
Next Wednesday, we have fun. But next Wednesday, I'll lay down my life. I'll take off my hat.
You the man. And then golf the snot out of them. I don't know how golf works, but you get the best score. You go win the Stanley Cup next week in golf. I don't know sports. Sports ball.
Obviously, Stanley Cup, golf.
Maybe we should send him a K-Wave baseball cap just so he can wear that on the golf course.
He could.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then he might be looked at as rebellious by his friends.
That's true. Yeah. That's true.
We don't want that associated with us. Anyway, we are out of time. Sorry that we couldn't get to all of your phone calls, but we'll do it again tomorrow between 3 and 4 p.m. Pacific time. Dr. Ed Stetzer, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Again, great to be here at Calvary Chapel in Costa Mesa and Pastor's Perspective on K-Wave. See what I got all in there?
You got it all in there. Very good. And Brian, we'll see you tomorrow. Looks like we've got a longtime friend joining us.
Yes.
For the first time in a while. Yeah. Bill Buffington will be here. Yay.
It'll be fun.
Yes, it will. All right, guys. God bless you guys. And thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We're going to archive today's episode on Facebook, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And then we'll talk to you tomorrow here on Pastor's Perspective.